$39.99 now during Menards Super Sale.
Save big money at Menards.
Well, it's an inspirational story, and he's got a book that tells a lot about it. With me today to tell us about his book, it's Methancholy, right?
Correct.
That's how you want to say it? All right. It is Bad Dietrich, and thanks for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So this book is out. People can buy it now. It's your story. It's your life, isn't it? And there's so much to it. First of all, before we talk about the book, why did you want to write it?
I don't hold nothing back in the book, and when I had first gotten locked up and realized that I wanted to stay sober, I knew that I wanted to write about it. And then I read some books in prison that really put a flame under me that encouraged me to go ahead and start it.
I'm not done with the book, but I read a good portion of it. It's such an easy read. I said it's like you're talking to me, and it just flows. Was it hard for you to get it all out, or did it just flow out for you too to tell your story?
It kind of it just all flowed out. Actually, I would get moments where I would carry around pieces of paper in my pocket where I would have to write down a story or a recollection that I knew I would have to add in to get it to all fit together. It took about 7 revisions and about a year total to get it all completed.
All right, it's quite the story, and it's local. And let's start with maybe the bus, the drug bus. Your help, background. How did we hear so many people getting into drugs right now? How did you get into it? Because no one really wants to. How did it take you in? How did you get into it?
It was definitely the peers I had. It was definitely being young. I was influenced by people that were important to me in my life. And then we started getting into scenes like going to raves, hanging out with older people, and it just escalated from there. So. And
then you got really involved in drugs, right? Tell us more about that.
Correct. Once I started going to the raves, I started using a lot of ecstasy, and then the pills my usage increased tremendously of it. And then I started driving to Detroit, getting jars and then selling them. And then eventually, you know, my significant other introduced me to meth, and I tried it. And after that, it was all in.
And then you got kind of involved with a meth lab, right? Helping them help supply what they needed, right?
Correct. I had a couple co-defendants that were just cooking for themselves, but then I got involved, and I'm like, well, I can really, you know, make something of this. We can make a lot of drugs that we can do for free. And that's a lot of the point of the book is I was very callous. I was very ruthless when it came to it. I didn't care about what happened to people, but I turned it around. It's never too late. It's never too late to just be done with it. I mean, drugs just ruin everybody's life in one way or another.
Right, yeah, really a lot of heartache too in this book.
Oh, and that's why the play on words, because melancholy means pensive reflection, deep, sad reflection on life. And running a meth organization, I just put the 2 and 2 together and came up with the title.
So it did all come crashing down because you ended up in prison.
Correct. I was facing 30 years total.
And that's quite the story right there too. Prison, not an easy thing.
No, I ended up doing a total of 7 years, and there was a mess up in my sentence, or else I only would have done 6 because I did so good in prison. And they brought me back to let me out early, and I had been sentenced wrong. So I ended up getting out at 7. I ended up pleading out to a 10-year sentence, and I got out at 7 and was back to work by the next morning.
And I think that prison time also is a good thing to point out, because some people think they go to prison, they don't, you know, you can't recover, you can't get help in there, and they just come out and start doing the same thing. You're the opposite. I mean, that does happen.
Correct.
But it is possible, right? You got good counseling, you got turned around. Yes,
there's very helpful staff members in prison. There's people I met that I want to keep a part of my life forever, some of the staff in there. And while I was in there, though, a big thing about it is wanting to change. If you're not sick of it, my turning point was when I was holding 30 years in my hands, a 30-year sentence, and I'm like, how is drugs a party? How is drugs fun? That's what these drugs were supposed to be, but my life's ruined now. I mean, I could end up in prison forever. So each individual has to know, when is enough enough? When are you sick of it? When are you sick of throwing up in the mornings? When are you sick of your family being upset? It's what's upsetting you. What is your breaking point? Some people never learn. They just die of their addiction.
Right. So you hope some people who read this book, get inspired, get the help, maybe can help family members, whatever, right?
Absolutely. The whole point of holding nothing back was anybody who has a family member who's an inmate, who has a problem with their sexual orientation, how they are, who has a problem with drugs. It's for anybody of that nature, their families, who may, you know, find a way to talk to their family member, their loved one, or help themselves.
All right, you have a book signing coming up. You work at Westgate, and Wes and Andy really supportive of you. And tomorrow,
they're great guys.
Tomorrow you can meet you, get your book, and there's a book signing.
Correct. I have a book signing tomorrow at Westgate from 5 to 7. It will be in the party room, so I will be there to sign the books, and then I have it's in discussions to have an upcoming book signing with Coleman next month because of my support there and the people I know there. They said, being drug related, they would like to have one there too.
Yeah, exciting stuff. So I'm glad things turned around. Also, you can get it on Amazon.com too.
Correct.
All right, very good. Thank you. Just a tip of the iceberg with your story. So hopefully people get the book. So thanks for coming today.
Thanks a lot, Holly.
All right, don't go away. We'll take a look at the weather forecast next.
99% of the people that have these to have background checks, and they're law-abiding citizens, and they should have that firearm.
The bill goes to the state Senate next.
An area man who documented his battle with drugs holding a local book signing this evening. Brad Dietrich fought an addiction to methamphetamine and was caught up in the drug trade and criminal activity because of it. Even during his time in prison, he realized drugs were a dead end. Now he wants to help others with similar struggles. In his book, Methancholy, he talks about his addiction, incarceration, and various personal issues. He says talking about the drug epidemic is one way to take up the fight against drugs.
I hold nothing back. I totally discuss everything about growing up, my own struggles with everything, how I got introduced to drugs and how it spiraled out of control, how no matter what, the tolerance of drugs escalates, and it only leads to a bad outcome. You know, people overdose and die, people end up locked up. There's nobody graduates from using drugs and makes something successful themselves. There's always a bad outcome.
Dietrich served 7 years in prison, during which time he worked on the book. Methancholy is available from Amazon.com and Kindle.com.
The Allen County Republicans are going to get some political insight during this year's barbecue. Allen County Republican Central Committee Chair Jurgen